Welcome to the Stanley Street Social Podcast. I'm here in Andorra today with EF Education First rider Simon Clarke. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having us in your spot here in Andorra. It seems to be a bit of a hot spot for riders now. You were one of the pioneers, I heard, of coming to Andorra.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose not the pioneer, but one of the first, in the first group of guys that decided to make the move up here. And I've been here 6 years now, and it's really, we love it. It's great. It's the support that the country gives the cyclists is really good as well. They're really behind us, and I've seen the roads evolve and the support that we've had to make it more cycling friendly, particularly for the pro cyclists that are coming to live here, is really significant, and it's really good to see.
Why do you think so many people are starting to move up here? Like, obviously there's a little bit of a benefit tax-wise, a little bit of altitude as well, I guess.
Yeah, there's multiple reasons. Probably the biggest main reason is particularly for the Aussies and the amount of Aussies that are now moving to Andorra, is we need to have a residency in Europe to be able to stay here more than 90 days, because nearly all of us only have Australian passports.
Yeah.
And that Andorra is one of the easiest places to get residency. And the problem is riding, from me as an example, I ride for an American team. So the company I work for is technically American. And so what does a European country have interest in giving some dude a residency that works for an American company? That they have no interest in that. So it's not that easy to go up into any other country and just get residency to live there. It's not impossible, but Andorra is one of the places that have really welcomed pro cyclists and sporting athletes in general. And between that and the good training here, the mountains and whatnot, it's a perfect combination for pro cyclists.
And you've also got a spot in Italy as well. Your wife, she's Italian, so you kind of move between the two.
Yeah, we got a bit of a base there with my wife being Italian, so we get back and see the in-laws every now and again, and get back for a few good Italian meals.
Yeah.
But we love it here in Andorra. I mean, today's a perfect example
it's unreal.
of why we love it. It's just
looking over there, looks like it's like a 2D image. It's not real.
Sitting at 1,500 meters on the terrace in a t-shirt, can't complain.
Let's talk a little bit about the team. You joined EF, I think it was probably Cannondale, in 2016. What was it like moving from an Australian team to like an American team? I'm guessing there wasn't a whole lot of difference in terms of the culture, but what was different between the two teams?
There was a big difference in the culture.
Was there?
Really. Jerry Ryan's done a great job setting up Orica, and there's a really real family feeling in Mitchelton, and I think they've done a great job with that. And so moving to an American team, it was not that it's better or worse, just a different culture. They have, Americans have a different way of going about things, and they have their own style. But I was really looking forward to a change. I needed new challenges. I got to a stage in Orica where the team didn't really see me progressing much further than I was already going, and so I needed to move to another team where they believed that I could continue to improve and deliver good results. And JV reached out to me and asked me if I'd be interested in coming over, and the answer was yes. Yeah.
What sort of goals did you have wanting to move? Like, what was the main focus? Just to try and do your own thing in races a little bit more?
Yeah, I've always, I don't really have idols or anything like that, but I've always looked up to Simon Gerrans my whole career, and he's like 6 years older than me, and so I've kind of always looked at what he's done 6 years before me and set that as like a goal. Not necessarily I have to do exactly what he's done, but if I can set the bar at that kind of level, then hopefully I can land there or somewhere in between.
Yeah.
And I felt like I got to a stage that flattened off a little. I'd got some okay results. I'd won a few, I'd won a stage in in the Vuelta and the team's time trial and the Giro, and worn the pink jersey, but kind of I felt limited there, and I needed, sometimes going to a new team, you feel like you need to prove yourself again, and even just that in itself raises the bar. And actually my first race in Europe with Cannondale, I actually won in Italy, in Larciano.
Good way to start.
Yeah, I mean, you're just so motivated to prove to them also that what they thought in you as a bike rider, they were right, and that this is, I'm here to deliver. And so I've been really enjoying it here. I really felt like I've found my little niche in this team. I think it's really important that every rider finds their little spot in a team, and if you're competing with someone else for a particular spot, it's never going to work, and you really need to find a different team, and until you find a team that you have a little spot and a position, and the team believes in the qualities that you can bring to the team. Otherwise, this sport's hard enough as it is without having that kind of support.
So what's your main role in the team now? Kind of like the road captain, the tactic man?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of initially fell into that kind of role because coming from Mitchelton or Orica back then, we had so much experience, and so we didn't really have road captains because everyone was pretty drilled and knew what they were doing. But then I got to Cannondale, and we had some really experienced guys, but we also had like half a team with really no experience, or guys that had been pro for years but they just hadn't learned anything and really needed guidance. And so that just came natural to me to pass on some of that experience that I gained in racing with Orica.
Yeah.
And I fell into this kind of role of leading the guys on the road, and I quite enjoy it. And I don't have, I mean, it's important, you really have to be able to communicate well, and communicate in a way that riders are willing to listen to you and do what you tell them. And that's not such an easy job, to be able to tell guys to work for someone else when they think they're the next whoever, and that they've got to work for their teammate. So there's particular ways of going about that, and trying to keep your teammates on your side, but also actually tell them what to do. And there's a fine line there that you kind of need to play with. But then through the years, particularly Charlie Wagelius, the head director in this team, has really pushed me, has seen the qualities that I have as a bike rider, and he's really believed that I can personally deliver better results than what I was, because I was so caught up in this road captain job. And so he's really been pushing me to focus on my own performance the last couple of years, and it's been hard to switch back to that, because you go from thinking about all your teammates to thinking about yourself, and you kind of really have to be selfish and ride in a very, kind of, I call it riding with your blinkers on, kind of like in horse racing. You just got to ignore all the outside factors and just think of yourself. And the level in the World Tour is so high that I find that's how you have to ride if you want to get any kind of personal result.
Be ruthless.
And I mean, this year it's kind of all clicked for me, and I've been able to flick that switch, and in the races that I've been given the green light, really deliver. So it's been going well this year.
Can you perform both roles? Can you be the team leader as well as the road captain? Is that a thing, or are the roles kind of separate?
Yeah, no, they are very separate, I find, because as soon as you start thinking about the team situation, you stop thinking about your own situation.
Yeah. And
okay, maybe if you are that good a bike rider that you can afford to do both, but I'm not that. So I found that if I want to deliver at a race, I really need to ride for myself and ride selfishly, so to speak, and just think of purely on my own performance. And when I do that, I've found this year that I really can perform with the best guys in the world, and it's really motivating.
We'll talk about the start of your season in a sec. What has been the main difference from when you joined the team in 2016 to now 2019? Because even last year, I think the first World Tour win you guys had was like in September, the Vuelta, possibly.
Yeah.
Now you guys won a lot of races, won obviously the Ronde, yourself, second at Amstel. Just looking at you guys on the TV, you're part of the race. You guys are like really, involved compared to previous years. It's kind of been like where's EF? Like they're not really there. What's changed?
The biggest thing is EF, the sponsor. They were on board already last year, but in a less influential way. And then this year they've come on and basically taken over. So last year, as you would have seen, we had like 4 different team names and it took about 3 minutes to pronounce it.
Yeah.
And this year, we're just Team EF. And what they've brought on, they've really taken us under their entire EF umbrella and part of the EF family, and it's kind of gets back to what I was talking about with the way Jerry Ryan set up Mitchelton, and we really feel like now we're part of a family and part of there's 55,000 EF employees that probably at least half of them are watching a TV every time we race, cheering us on, and things like that go a long way when you know that there's people out there genuinely going for it, supporting us, and that support, and obviously we've had a step up in the budget as well for the team, and that's really provided an opportunity for the team to invest in riders' TT positionings and improving a few things in our equipment and technology that we're racing on, and I really think that those things have made a massive difference in the performance.
You're talking a little bit about like the family feel. Do you think that that's probably something that lacks a little bit in cycling? Sponsors always seem to be these rich businessmen, just come inject money for a couple of years, then just pull the plug. So it's kind of hard to get a little bit of culture and morale built up.
Yeah, I definitely think that is. And I mean, until you've ridden in a team with that family feel, it's hard to say that you don't need that.
Yeah.
But when you do, suddenly it just raises the bar, and riders, if you look at our team list from last year and this year, we're nearly all the same riders. Not that much has changed.
Yeah.
We're on the same bikes. We had a few little equipment changes, but nothing significant. And suddenly we've gone from winning our first Pro Tour race in September at the Vuelta to being, right up there.
Yeah.
And a lot of that's to do with that family feel that EF's brought on, and they've really got behind us, and even just from a management point of view, everything's run under the EF umbrella now, and we're just part of a 55,000 employee company, and obviously we're the sporting side of things, but there's a whole massive company behind us, and it gives you a lot of pride to race with the EF logo, knowing that there's such a company behind you supporting you, and so invested and interested, and not just throwing money at something and wanting to see that publicity on the TV. I
think it's a really important thing to note. Bettiol winning the Ronde. Where were you? Where were you watching it, and what were you thinking when he was solo the last 15k, and then when he eventually won? What were your reactions?
Yeah, Bettiol's an interesting one, because obviously I was teammates with him for 2 years. When I first came, we both rode together for 2 years in 16 and 17, and then he just had a holiday at BMC,
Went to BMC for a year. Yeah.
But that all happened because of the sponsorship issues in this team in 2017, and when we had a new sponsor coming on, and then they pulled out at the 11th hour, and at that moment he had an option to go to BMC, and when this team for a while there looked like it was going to shut down, and so obviously he had an option to leave and signed it straight away, and he did the right, in that situation, he did the right thing 100%. We all would have probably because you get left without a team in October, late September, and
good luck.
It can be career ending, that no matter how good a bike rider you are. but yeah, and then he had a terrible year in BMC. He couldn't stay on his bike.
Yeah.
Poor guy. And yeah, but we always, as soon as he left, I said, you'll be back, because I knew he'd be back. He loves this team, and it's funny. Quite often Italians need to be with other Italians to they need friends around.
Yeah.
And he's just not one of them. He just loves.
He's an outlier.
He still gets along with the Italians, and obviously he's very close with them all, but he doesn't need them to perform.
Yeah.
Like he just loves his team. And so when he came back, I knew he was going to do well. And it's like I was saying about before, when you change teams, you really want to prove that, they took a gamble taking you on in some way. And I want to prove that they made the right decision. And I knew that he would come back to this team going, I'm sorry I left, and I want to prove to you that I am, you made the right decision to give me a second chance. And I know I've seen Bettiol, particularly in the 2017 Tour de France when Rigo came second. Bettiol was unbelievable.
Yeah.
He was riding front group on climbs, down to like 30 guys in the Tour, and he's not really a climber. And I know the talent he has, but I just felt like he never committed 100%, and he was never ticking all the boxes.
Yeah.
And I always said to him, the day that you decide to commit 100%, you will win some big races. And I really saw that change this year. And, he spent the whole of January in Tenerife sitting on top of the volcano preparing for the classics. And he's really come back to this team and gone, right, I'm going to do everything I can. And he's working very closely with the physios. He's had a few hip issues over the years, which he's been able to resolve through the team physios, which has been great. And, once you start ticking all those boxes and you already have a big motor, the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't surprise me at all that he did that performance, but I was so happy that he did, obviously. But for a guy to win their first pro race to be Flanders,
it's ridiculous.
Some people go, "Oh, that's amazing," and for me, I go, it makes me think how many races he could have won already before winning. Like, if you're good enough to win Flanders, you can win a lot of bike races on the pro circuit. And I just, I'm stoked for him, and I just hope that this is the beginning, because he's a super talent, and he can win some big races. Hopefully at the Tour. I know he's been back on Tenerife in this period now, and I'm sure he'll be firing again for the Tour de France. So I think we can expect some good performances from him there. Yeah.
Do you think that's all it takes, just to, obviously it's almost as big a win as possible, but you get that one and then you think, well, hang on, I can beat these guys anytime.
Yeah.
Is that all it takes?
I think. I mean, not all.
Yeah.
but
it's
even
a big
for myself
tick.
this year, being able to finish, in the front in San Remo and line up with the guys for the sprint there, even though I was pretty toast, and then even going toe to toe with Van Avermaet in Strade Bianche, and then obviously the ride I had at Amstel, it's given me a lot of confidence and belief that, okay, I am good enough to ride in the front of these big bike races.
Yeah.
And instead of just riding with the mentality, okay, I've just got to try and be there, and then we'll see what happens. Now it's like, okay, let's be there, and then
throw it to them.
See how we're going to race the final,
Yeah.
And that gives you a lot of confidence, because you're not riding the whole day going, okay, I've got to make that split, It's like, I'm riding the day, so I'm in that split, and then I'm going to try and figure out how I'm going to win this race. And that's a big mental step forward. And so once you can do a result like Bettiol's done, definitely gives you a whole new level of confidence to what you're capable of, which is only super beneficial for the future.
Your start of the season's been pretty impressive. Top 10 in Torino, top 10 at Strade Bianche and San Remo, and obviously Amstel, which we'll talk about in a sec. But what's clicked? And top 10 in Torino, that's one of the hardest 1 week stage races in the business. San Remo and Strade Bianche, two of the hardest one dayers. What's clicked for you this year?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing to note is they were all in Italy.
Yeah.
And, I came to Italy when I was 16 as a first-year junior, and I've basically been in Europe ever since, but I did a lot of my early years racing in Italy. And so that's like, in terms of, from a racing point of view, that's like my second home. Obviously living in Andorra, but we don't really ever race here apart from a stage in the Tour, in the Vuelta every now and again. Whereas in Italy, I really get on those roads, and I've raced so many of those roads. They kind of feel like semi-home roads to me.
Yeah.
I know those. I've done Torino probably 7 or 8 times, and I really know that race. And this year, for the first time since 2011, they didn't have a super long hilltop finish. So in 2011 was my first year in the Pro Tour with Astana, and I actually came 15th. I was like basically neo-pro, and I was 15th overall in Torino. And they didn't have a long hilltop finish that year. And then I saw the course come out this year for Torino, and it was like 2011, and I'm like, okay,
Punchy finishes.
Here's my chance. I can ride GC here because the climbs are doable.
Yeah.
And I can, I'm not going to be smashed on a 10k uphill finish by Quintana, and so I went there. I was super G'd for it, and I was actually quite surprised starting the season in Provence. I came second in Tour of Provence, which I wasn't expecting. I didn't realise I was kind of going so well, to be honest. I'd just been at home. I hadn't raced. I didn't race in January at all, and just been at home preparing. And I came there and really found my legs and took it from there, basically.
Yeah.
And I mean, I obviously for the first year ever, I've skipped all of my Australian racing and just did a really slow progression build up during December and January into February. And I really think that was being able to control the whole of my January build up, I think was really beneficial. And it kind of hurts to say because I do love racing the Australian summer, but how well I've been able to deliver early this year, I think I need to reflect a bit on how I achieved that and what my priorities are. Because I think being able to control, like in some ways, it's not hard enough, and in other ways it's too hard. And you go really hard for an hour, and then the rest is easy, and you're only doing 4 hours a day. And sometimes you want to do more, and sometimes you want to do less, and you can't. It's kind of out of control. Whereas when you're at home, you can really control exactly the quantity and quality that you're doing. And I mean, we seem like we got that right this year. And every year I come back and I'm like, right, if I'm going to get any better, I've got to step things up. And so I try and every year step things up 5%. Whether that's train harder or look at other areas where I can improve, get lighter or get stronger off the bike, in the gym, or whatever it is. Really try and, if you're not moving forward, you're getting past. So I really try and make that step up every year. And this year, things seem to really have clicked.
So do you think that that's the key, probably missing that Oz summer? Because Australians, they get caught up in it a little bit, don't they? They want to be flying in January. But if you're flying in January, it's hard to either come down and build again for spring or hold it. It's a real tricky one, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. And, I mean, it hurts me to say it because I love racing down under and love Cannondale's race and even Sun Tour.
Yeah.
I've won Sun Tour, and, I'd love to get back there. But... like you said, you put it in the big picture, and it's really, you kind of really got to reevaluate what's worth, what's it worth to you.
Yeah.
And my problem is, I think if I could perform better in January, I'd have maybe a different opinion on it. But even doing all the prep that I can in December, I really struggle getting to top form for the first week of January. I just can't do it. And I'm always lacking that 5%. And so the fact that I can't do it anyway, and then if I don't do it this year like I have, because we didn't touch on the reason why I didn't do the Australian Summer this year, but I had a baby on the Friday of Tour Down Under, so we came back to Europe so we could have the baby.
Yeah.
And that was the reason why I missed the Australian Summer, and so I was at home babysitting and sleeping 5 hours a night, and maybe that's another reason why I've been going well, training when I'm not even training.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I've had quite a lot of changes this year, and it's hard to put my finger on one of them to say that was a decisive thing that's provided me with the chance to do these results. But I've reflected on a lot, and I've really tried to take note of what I've done this year, and I'm really trying to replicate that now in the lead up to the Tour de France, and also for the future, future seasons.
So Amstel Gold Race, you were second behind new king, the new whiz kid. Was it a big target for you to start with, Amstel?
Yeah, I mean, it was. I really loved Amstel. I really like it, and I've always said that in general you need to do these classics 5 times before you can be competitive. And okay, there's exceptions to that rule. You get your Alaphilippes and these guys that just rock up. It doesn't matter what race it is, they kill you, or Van der Poels. But for most riders, if you see all of their big results in any classic, they've done them a whole bunch of times before they end up standing on the podium, whatever step that is. And this year I'd got to my 6th or something in Ardennes campaign, and I really felt like with the early spring form that I had, that this was my year to crack a good result. And so yeah, Amstel was a big goal for me. But you can have big goals, but to deliver on races like that, there's just so many things.
It's on a one-day race.
Yeah, so many things that can happen, and it's such a dangerous race. So much road furniture, so many corners and ups and downs, that so much can happen in 260k that you can perform, you can prepare all you want and be the biggest goal you want, but it can still, with the form of your life, it can still go badly. So you just try and simplify things and really break it down and go, okay, I know I'm going good, but to go good, I need to get to the final. And so how am I going to do that? And I need to ride safely, basically, for 200k. And so that I deliver myself in a position where I can use my form to get a result. And obviously we had Bettiol as well, who just won Flanders. So I didn't go into Amstel as the outright leader either. And so that, depending on how Bettiol rode Amstel, that could have also been unfavourable to my aspirations in the sense that if he was in a winning position, I would obviously be taking a back seat and riding in his defence. And so I needed to also see how I was going to play my cards so that we, the goal is for the team to win the race, not to race your teammates. So I was also aware of that and kind of had to go in, even though I was super G'd for the race, really going with an open mind and just try and see how I could put myself in a winning position.
Talk us through the last 10k, because on the TV it was Fuglsang, Alaphilippe, one of those two were going to win it. No one else could win it. I think the gap was like a minute. What was it like, that last 10k, and especially that last 500? You got on Van der Poel. You probably knew he was the quickest guy there. You're a smart bloke on the bike, Simon. Everyone knows that. You've obviously picked the right wheel and paid off in the end. Couldn't quite get around him, but talk us through that that last 5-10k, because it was ridiculous.
Yeah, the fact that he won the mountain bike World Cup on the weekend and just beat Dino Schurter doesn't make me feel quite so bad that I didn't get around him in Amstel, considering he just pumped one of the best mountain bikers ever.
Just dusted him up.
But yeah, so it was actually a super emotional roller coaster for me as well in that last 10K, because there I was with Mollema chopping off as hard as we could for that probably it was like 15K really, and we just couldn't get any close to the guys in front of us. And so here I am thinking, I'm sixth and seventh on the road. Maybe if we catch the guy in front, I can get a top 5. And so I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna, I've got a top 5-ish in me. And okay, that's a great, in Amstel, I would be happy with that. I hadn't even been in the top 10 before, so I wasn't, I was G'd, but it was like, okay, let's go for that. And then I started getting this information on the radio that Vanderpoel was coming. And then
he was coming from the back, was he?
Yeah. So there was a group of the group that I went away with, which was, I don't know, there was 20 of us left. He came across with 4 other guys and caught us with 3K to go. And then I'm like, oh shit, I'm not even going to run in the top 10 now. Like 4 guys have just caught me. If I don't play my cards right, I'm not even going to run a top 10. And kind of, if you're not in the top 10, it's a bit of a nothing result. And so then I'm like, all right, well, I better bloody play my cards right here. And then they've caught us, and he's just gassed it up that last drag coming into 2K to go. And we caught Schachmann and Trentin, and then suddenly we come around the corner and we can see Kwiatkowski and Alaphilippe and Fullslang right there. And I'm like, shit, we're sprinting for the win here. So then I've gone from thinking, maybe top 5 to then, not even top 10. And then suddenly we're like, here we are, we're on here.
Yeah.
And so as soon as Vanderpoel caught me, I knew he was the guy. And I took a quick look around at who I was with, and the only real other fast guy I was worried about was Schachmann, who'd been going really well in Pays Basque the week before and won a bunch of stages. And so I just got straight on Vanderpoel, and I knew that he was the guy to be on. And we're there at 800 to go, and he's leading us out, and I'm on his wheel. I'm thinking,
beauty.
Here we go. Like, okay, we haven't caught him yet. Like, if it wasn't for his sprint, it was touch and go whether we were going to catch him. And I'm like, if I'm ever going to come off Vanderpoel, it's after he's led me out for 800 metres.
Yeah.
And so, I just lined up, and he hit out. And one thing that Gero kind of, he didn't consciously teach me, but that I learned off Gero is he was really good at his first sprint being at 200 to go, even after 260K. He hadn't done a sprint all day. And that's one thing I really keep in my mind when I'm racing for myself, is that I don't do a sprint all day over 1,000 watts until that last one.
Yeah, okay.
And I was coming to that finish going, all right, we're on here, and I haven't done a sprint yet. That was, when you roll out of your house when you go training, and that first sprint you do is like, they're your best watts.
Uh-huh.
And if you can do, obviously we train a lot and are capable of doing those kind of distances, but if you can not do that one sprint, all-out sprint, even after 250K, you can still do a super sprint if you haven't tapped into those resources all day. And I hadn't. So I'm like, right, I've got a good sprint here. Whereas using it as an example, in San Remo, I went over the top of the Poggio 12 seconds behind the front guys, and I did a standing sprint out of every single U-turn down the Poggio to get back on.
Risked your life on the downhill as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think me and Moritz got close to breaking the Strava on the Poggio descent. And okay, I didn't have a choice, because if I didn't do that, I wasn't getting back on and back into the front. But I burnt my bickies, and then I got to the sprint, and I was, I left it on the descent basically.
Yeah.
But I knew, I'm lining up in Amstel going, I haven't done that sprint yet. And So I line up on Van der Poel, and he's hit out, and he's lined up the 3 leaders perfectly, got the hit off them. And I mean, I did the best sprint I could have done, and the guy's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I didn't really get close to him. But yeah, I mean, I'm super happy that even to run second to a guy like this, you know, the fact that he's just gone to mountain bike and cleaning up there and World Cups as well, you know, proves that this guy is just unbelievable.
On another level.
You know, I'm still happy to have finished second to a guy like that.
Yeah.
And plus, with this such a spectacular finish that came out in the end, you know, I think it's cool to be a part of an Amstel that we talked about for a long time.
People saying it's like the best finish of a bike race of all time.
Yeah.
It must be pretty cool to be involved in
I don't know about of all
something
time.
so wild like that. That's what I heard. That's what I was reading.
I don't know about all time, but in terms of classics, and there's not many classics that have come down to a finish like that. But in my time, I'm sure if you went back far enough, you'd find one. But it was pretty exciting. So I mean, it all just clicked for me. I mean, you can have the Formula Life, like I said, and things not work out, and you need to have the Formula Life and a bit of luck on your side.
Yeah.
And everything just seemed to click for me that day.
So now we're up here in Andorra. So after a big spring like that, you kind of just cool off a little bit and then prepare for your next major goal, which is the Tour de France with EF. You'll be there with Rigo, will probably be the main man, doing Dauphiné before that. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And
So
then the Tour.
I've done a pretty similar program the last bunch of years now, and I think there's not enough said about riders finding what program works for them and then just repeating it year after year.
Yeah.
And then that way you can fine-tune things. And, you know, even this year, you know, I do Torino every year, I do Sanremo every year, I do Pays Basque every year, I do the Classics every year. And then after the Classics, I have a week break every year, and then I have 4 weeks prep until the Dauphiné. And you do that enough times, and with trial and error, you figure out what works and what doesn't. Whereas if every season you're doing different races and get thrown in different stuff, it's hard to fine-tune that preparation. And so I really appreciate the support from the team to continue to give me a consistent program that I can work with, and that way I can fine-tune what I do at home, learning year after year of what I need to be doing to perform as best as possible. And you know, I see a lot of guys that are always chopping and changing programs, and I think that it's really hard to nail down what works and doesn't work for you if you're doing something different every time you rock up. So yeah, like most of the years now, I had a week off after the Classics, and I've got a 4-week block now, a pretty intense training block leading into the Dauphiné, which we're 10 days out now, and then 3 more weeks at home after the Dauphiné to fine-tune things before the Tour.
So it's all about Rigo, you think, at the Tour de France for you guys? He's been second there before. He's back in Colombia now, fine-tuning.
Yeah, Rigo's definitely our GC hope. We've also got Danny Martinez, who's still qualifies for the Young Riders jersey, the white jersey. And so a kind of second goal, I believe, is for Danny to chase the white jersey, because he's another super talent coming out of Colombia, and I really think that he'd be knocking on the door to go with that, to win that jersey. So
Flying.
between Rigo chasing the yellow jersey and Danny Martinez chasing the white jersey, I reckon we'll have our work cut out for the month of July.
And for yourself, do you retake on that role as road captain, or will you get your own chances on a few stages?
I'll definitely have to slot back into that road captain role for a good part of the tour. Which is fine. I love doing it, particularly with Rigo. We get along so well, and we've had great success doing that, particularly in 2017. But yeah, hopefully I'll maybe get a few opportunities to jump up the road and have a bit of fun. But obviously we just need to see how things go. Priority is, you know, the team getting a great GC result, and everything, work everything out backwards from there.
So what about the actual future, looking past this year for the team, EF? You've got a few young riders, Whelan, Martinez, like you said, Hugh Carthy, who's been doing some good bits and pieces in the Giro. Is that kind of where you think the growth is going to come from in this team, this young crop that you've got, and guys like yourself kind of mentoring these young guys through?
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. It's, we see with Hugh Carthy, he was already pro with Caharuel for a couple of years, and then he's done, how many, is it 2 years now, or 3, maybe even 3 years in this team. And so you need a bunch, unless you're an absolute freak, you need a bunch of years to develop. And so it's hard to just sign a young guy. And, even Whelan, I think, is a super talent, and he's doing great this year for his first year. But, I'd be surprised if it doesn't take him another 3 years before he's doing anything like Hugh's doing this year at the Giro.
Because he was a rider that, as a under 23, he had a couple of races in Europe. Like he's just been thrown straight into it.
And if you take that into account, he's doing amazingly well. Like for guys that I've seen with a lot more European experience and struggle so much more in the pro peloton, Jimmy Whelan's a really interesting signing, and he's doing really well. And I really hope he continues on his current trajectory, because I think he'll be a really good rider in the future if he can continue to go the way he's going. It's not easy moving over here. He hasn't spent a lot of time in Europe. You got to, a lot of people at home don't realise the social factors behind being a pro cyclist and living in Europe. And anyone can go good living at home with their mum cooking and washing and cleaning for them, and all they do is eat, sleep and train and lie on the couch all day. And suddenly you move to Europe and you got to do all that yourself, and then you got to ride better than what you were doing with your mum's cooking. And a lot of people don't realise that, and there's a lot in that. And I think that I would go as far as saying probably 80% of the guys that maybe turned pro or came to Europe and didn't make it, or they were pro for a little bit and then they never settled in Europe, and they never made Europe home. And if you can make Europe home, I think you're halfway there to be a 100%. Pro cyclist, because that's just key. You've got to be able to stay here all year and feel like you're just doing your job and living out of home, because if this sport's hard enough if you're not relaxed at home and doing everything right there. And so I've spoken to Jimmy a lot about that, and I really hope that he's already doing well, but it's really got to come from the rider himself to want to make it home and to want to do everything right. You can't have someone there telling you what to do. It's got to come from them, otherwise it's never going to work. So I think watch that space, because I think he's going well. He's in Dauphiné, so
we caught up with him a couple of days ago.
He's in for a shock there. Dauphiné's
good way to learn.
Hardest race bar none in the world, and being the Tour de France selection race. If you can get through the Dauphiné and not cop hiding. Well, you cop a hiding. Even I cop a hiding in the Dauphiné. But if you can get through the Dauphiné and still have a little bit of morale left, then you're gonna be an alright bike rider, because it doesn't get any harder than that.
So what can you do, like as a senior rider at races like that, if a youngster's just getting absolutely thrashed? What can you do to kind of keep morale up and keep him just chipping away?
I just try to break it. You just got to simplify things, because it's pretty daunting when, maybe Sky's on the front and you haven't gone under 50k an hour for 100k, and you're just copping a hiding, and you haven't even gone over a hill, and you're already basically nearly getting dropped, and you got 2 Cat 1s to go first, and it's like you just need to simplify things down and go, right, okay, I just need to get to the bottom of this climb, and I know I'm climbing good, and then I'll just find my group and they'll get me to the finish, or whatever it is. Just, you got to stay positive and really set small goals, easy goals, even if it's just getting over the second last climb. Once you've made it over that, get to the bottom of the last climb, check out, and
Yeah.
you're cruising the finish. You're not going to miss time card or anything like that. And so instead of going, there's still 100k to go and I'm bloody stuffed and Sky just handing it to me, if you think, okay, well, the top of the second last climb is only 40k away, and then if I get over that, well, I got 23k of descent,
Yeah.
and then another 20k of flat, and then we hit the last climb, and then I can check out and I just cruise to the finish, you know.
Uh-huh.
And if you break it down like that, well, it's not really 100k to go; it's only 40k to go. And
Yeah.
take a bunch of gels and
Get through it.
yeah, throw your bins at the bottom of the second last climb and go, right, I just got to get to the top. And so you simplify things like that, and you really can make life, mentally, it's a big mental game. It's particularly, at this level when things are just so hard. If you're not mentally on game, it's pretty hard.
Yeah.
And so, a similar thing happened with last year in the tour when Lawson crashed and broke his shoulder and got back up and he's riding and he was all obviously like down on morale and really nearly in tears, and I basically just went back to him and said, look, you just got to break this down. There's 60k to go, we got 40k of dead straight block headwind. You're not going to get dropped in with the bunch riding into a headwind. We turn left, there's 20k of side wind, and Froome's crashing and Bernal's crashing and everyone, Yates is crashing, and I just said, get to that left-hand turn, 20k to go. You only got 40k of block headwind, and then you can ride as slow as you want for 20k. You're still making time cut.
Yeah.
So don't worry about how much you're hurting. Just count those 40k down. You're not going to get dropped with the bunch riding into a headwind. They have to do 80k an hour, and you'll be fine. And if you simplify things down like that, okay, that's not the right mentality if you're trying to win bike races. But when you're just trying to get to the finish and survive certain stages, using that kind of mentality can really help get you through.
Last question before we let you go. National championships. Is it something that you want to tick off, or is it, we were talking a little bit before, that's something you might have to sacrifice, but it'd be pretty cool having those green and gold stripes for a season, and it's a parkour that does suit you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I dream of being able to wear the Aussie jersey in Europe, and I think any pro would be lying if they told you they didn't. It's just unfortunate that the timing of it,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been really trying to campaign for them to somehow consider putting road nationals after Tour Down Under, just to give the Pro Tour riders some time to build up the off season, build up from the off season, have a race, because you get these, the level is getting so good in Australia now, and these guys, they train all year and that's their peak race.
Yeah.
And they're good riders. Like Freeberg's an awesome rider.
Chris Harper is the same.
They if that's their number one goal for the year and we're in pre-season mode, of course they're going to be competitive.
Yeah.
And I don't take anything away from his win. What he did this year was amazing. I watched it I streamed it on from over here. But I really feel like, the national jersey, if you look back to the years that Stewie had the jersey and Robbie had the jersey and they'd take it to Europe and it was in the tour every year, I think that's the way it should be. And I know that nationals has always been then, but back in those days, the level in Australia wasn't as good.
Yeah.
So the Euro pros could come back in January on 70, 80% form and still take the jersey and take it to Europe.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that anymore. And if Cycling Australia is happy for a continental rider to have the national jersey every year, then leave it the way it is. But if they do want to have the Australian national jersey in the Grand Tours and in the Tour de France, I think maybe they need to consider moving nationals.
Yeah.
And that's my opinion. I mean, I'm sure there's a bunch of people out there that maybe don't agree with my opinion. But I really feel like, imagine if Cadell's race was nationals and all the World Tour guys, like even Richie has a week racing in his legs. Like we'd be up a hell of a race.
Yeah.
As opposed to like it's our first hit out. None of us even know how we're going. Every year we all cramp because we just haven't strained our muscles
45
like that.
degrees.
Yeah, exactly. And and it's just although I don't take every guy that's won it the last bunch of years deserves it, every cent of it. I think that maybe it's worth reevaluating how they want if they're happy with the way it is, or whether not that I feel like we don't have a chance to win, because of course I could not have an off season and start training in November, and sure I could be peaking for January, but
don't worry about spring then.
Yeah, but my team, I don't get paid to do that, and I could win nationals, but that's not going to get me a pro contract, or justify my wage with my pro team that pays me in winning a race that I'm not even wearing. They don't really. Participate as an individual.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to justify for us. Whereas if it was maybe just moved to after Down Under or after Sun Tour, like suddenly, I think we'd have much more exciting race too, with a lot of more of the Pro Tour guys. And I think you would get. I think a lot of guys are not doing it these days because of that.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's less and less guys are coming back out for it. And I think that if they moved it, a little bit later in January after a bit of racing that we could have, you'd get a lot more guys doing it.
Yeah.
And you'd see a cool race. So yeah, it's something to think about, and who knows? See what happens. Maybe they can run Cadell's race is the weekend after, and they've just announced this Thursday race with around Torquay.
Flicked the Albert Park race.
Yeah, so why couldn't we have the nationals on the Thursday or something, the elite men, and then have the women on the weekend, and then the World Tour race for the men on the Sunday.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a way of working it in there where you could easily ride the nationals on the Thursday and ride the pro race on the Sunday, and I think it would be really interesting to do something like that. But obviously there's a whole bunch of factors that goes into race organisation and sponsorship and funding and all that kind of thing. So, that's obviously the rider's opinion, and there's a whole lot of politics and logistics that goes into producing any kind of race. But yeah, I think that maybe a little calendar shuffle could be interesting for nationals. But yeah, like I said, definitely love to wear the jersey, but I've tried a bunch of years to really be good at nationals, and I'm finding it's just too early.
Yeah.
I just can't do it without necessarily stopping a month earlier in Europe and starting the whole season a month earlier. And so we'll see. I'm a bit put off it at the moment, like just because of the sacrifice that it takes. The level is just it's the level of nationals is just getting so high now, and it's great to see. Don't get me wrong, I'm stoked to see that there's so much more depth now in Australian cycling. But yeah, it's harder for the European pro to justify going back and doing it when it's it's like going, okay, you do the tour but you can't do the Dauphiné, and you just got to you can't race in May or June, and you just got to rock up as good as you can.
Yeah.
But everyone else can prepare perfectly, and then you just got to do as best you can, and it's it puts you off when you can't. I don't want to rock up to nationals at 80%. And, I want to be the best I can be, and I just can't do it the way it is set up at the moment. So we'll see.
We have to get the king of Ballarat, Pat Shaw, to pull a few strings, change the date.
I know. It's just the hardest bit to change it would be logistically. Before Cadell's race started, they could have. I think they could have easily whacked it on the Cadell race weekend. But now Cadell race is there, and then Sun Tour's straight after it. It's like,
it's a super full calendar.
Do you have it the week after Sun Tour now?
Yeah.
But then it's like it's going to be hard to keep guys in Australia because you're starting to tap into what's early European season then. But I don't know, that's something for them to work out. You know? Maybe they can push Suntour back a week, or I don't know what they do. Make Cadell's Race Nationals. But, you know, I know there's a close link with Ballarat there, so, you know, they'll work it out. But I think I've said it to a few, I've mentioned this idea to a few influential people in Cycling Australia. So we'll see.
We'll see what happens.
See if I can get any traction.
Maybe post-career you can move into that sort of space.
I don't
Event
know.
management and logistics.
No, I just really want to wear it.
Yeah,
so,
no doubt. No doubt.
Yeah, but we'll see. We'll see.
Simon, thanks very much for having us at your place here in Andorra and joining us on the podcast and sharing all your fantastic stories with us.
No worries. Thanks very much for having me, and hello to everyone back in Australia. And thanks for all your support. It's much appreciated.
Thanks for listening.